Hey Derek, you there?
There we go. Sorry, I got too many mute buttons on this computer. Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, sorry. It's 6:30 now, so we'll get started. I want to welcome Elizabeth May and Jonathan Pedneault to our interview series here. Before I get started here, I just want to acknowledge that I am broadcasting from the traditional Nanaimo First Nations territory. And I'll just do a little bit of housekeeping first before we begin here. Just let everyone know the format. It's going to be the same as last time. I'm just going to click record here just as a backup. I should be able to have this on the YouTube just in case. So the format for folks who missed the previous ones is we'll start by Jonathan and Elizabeth introducing themselves, telling us a little bit about why it is that they're running to be the leaders of the party, how they got to this place in their lives. Then we're going to ask some pre-selected questions from our EDA, which should be about 20 to 30 minutes to get through all of those, possibly longer depending on how long you two take to answer. And then we're going to open it up to audience questions. And we're going to have timers for the answers here. Vic's going to hold up a card to let you guys know when you've gotten halfway, 30 seconds, and time's up. Yeah, so without further ado, I'll leave it up to you two to decide who goes first. But what
How
are you
much
running
time
for?
for the introduction, Derek?
You
How
guys have
much?
5 minutes each.
Okay. Do you want to go first, Jonathan? What do you think? I can do it if you want, but
I'm
up to
happy
you.
to go first. Yes.
You're happy for me to go first? You see, okay. I have to apologize that I'm really tired. Last night was an emergency. I'll start my clock. Last night was an emergency debate on Hurricane Fiona, and I was in debate till midnight, and then I had an early start, and I have a very early start tomorrow, and I just left some other things. So I'm fine. I'm really grateful to the Nanaimo Ladysmith EDA for doing this. But if I look at Jonathan and say, did you say? I'm really okay. I'm just a little bit burnt candle at both ends. I'm in Ottawa. And I want to acknowledge that I'm on the traditional territory of the Algonquin Nation, although I am honored in Parliament to represent the Wasanich Nation. So I raise my hands to all of you, Haishka Siam, in the language of the territory that I'm honored to live on, the territory of Wasanich peoples and nations. Introducing myself, I think I know most of you. It feels strange in this format. I was kind of hoping that I'd see faces of a lot of people I know from Nanaimo Ladysmith, but this is fine. I look forward to seeing you in real life again soon. So why am I doing this? Okay, it's a two-part answer. Why am I doing it? Why am I doing it with Jonathan? I'll try to be brave. I would not be doing this, and I had no intention of offering myself as leader or co-leader of the Green Party of Canada until April 4th, 2022, when the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change third working group of the sixth assessment report filed their final report. And I have to say, as much as I know climate science and I'm hardly thinking that we've got lots of time, everything's good. We can, net zero by 2050. It's all going to be just a nice, smooth ride to a survivable planet. I wasn't prepared for the IPCC on April 4th, compressing both 1.5 degrees and 2 into the same sentence. They've never done that before. And saying the trajectory to hold on to 1.5 or 2 requires that global emissions peak and begin to drop rapidly between 2020 and at the latest before 2025. 2 days later, the Liberals approved Pedneault. The next day, the budget came out saying we're going to complete the Trans Mountain Pipeline. And we all know how all levels of government have been ignoring the importance of old growth and Fairy Creek. I just realized I had to do more. And it isn't about me thinking, oh, what can I do for the Green Party, or the Green Party needs me, or anything like that. I hate to say I was very, very focused on, I'm 68 years old. I'm a grandmother. I've got tons of energy, and I either quit Parliament now and join Extinction Rebellion, or I figure out something that I can do in Parliament that will make a bigger difference than what I'm doing now. And I went and talked to a lot of climate activists, and the answer I got back was, when I didn't expect, which was, we need you to be leader of the Green Party again. Not because they're Greens who want me to be their leader, but because they want climate action in Canada and they're missing our voice. And I'm the only person other than Mike Morris who could run for leader of the Green Party with a seat in Parliament. And I figured that was important. Then stage 2, I started talking to my friends in Green Party around the world, particularly friends who had run for leader and then run for co-leader, and recognized that it's a different proposition to say, look, I've learned things over the years. We have some structural issues. They manifested themselves in the difficulties of transition. Once I resigned, who was going to be the next leader? It wasn't altogether obvious, and we didn't really have a good opportunity to see how people were going to perform and whether they'd be a good fit before it was decided. Co-leadership solves that problem. As my friend Carolyn Lucas in the UK advised me, she said, look, when she came back after being leader once, came back with a younger, lesser known young man who was a really great Green. By the time they did one stint as co-leaders in an election, he was well known. And then he brought in a younger, lesser known Green to work with him. When I met Jonathan, which was in June, I thought, thank God, here's exactly the co-leader I am proud to run with, who represents a different perspective on the world. He'll tell you about his work overseas, his extraordinary bravery and commitment around fighting genocide and working for human rights. So we are balancing each other in many ways. He's the youngest candidate at 32. I'm the oldest at 68, but I have to say, I feel great. I've got 2 new knees. I'm still under warranty. I'm not tired. I'm tired tonight, but I have tons of energy to do this work. So I'm putting myself forward with Jonathan to revise the Constitution, to make it work functionally for us. And co-leaders is a first step, but at every step, our members will vote on that. And I am totally competent and proficient to be leader on my own, but I think we can serve the Green Party's values and interests better as a team.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and hi to all of you. I hope to have a chance to meet with you. I had the privilege of having dinner twice with Paul a couple of weeks ago in Nanaimo, and I'm hoping to return soon. I'm talking to you from Magdalena Islands, or Île de Madeleine, as we say in French, which is on the traditional and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq Nation. The reason I'm here, of course, is linked to the devastation that happened over the weekend in Atlantic Canada with Hurricane Fiona. I came here to not only show my solidarity to the people of this island, but also to learn more about what they see and as the responsibility of the federal government to prepare our communities for what we know is coming. We know that there will be more storms like these. We know that the sea, the ocean is warming, that the storms that will be moving north will carry more precipitations and more strength. And it's so crucial that our government does more to not only to prepare these communities, but also to respond to emergencies. Emergency preparedness in many ways is what brought me to the Green Party of Canada. I've for most of my career, I worked abroad since I was 17-year-old as a journalist and then as a human rights investigator. I worked in places like Darfur, Somalia, Yemen, and most recently in Ukraine as part of the Crisis and Conflict Division at Human Rights Watch. Part of my work was to investigate allegations of war crimes, notably through interviews. Asking questions and listening has always been part of my work, and I see politics and my coming into politics as continuing that. I think it's essential that one goes to the places that hurt and listens to people. And what I'm hearing so far throughout Canada, but also in the Green Party, is a lot of hurt and a lot of anger, building anger, of course, at the level of our country because of unmet promises by the Liberals, increased cost of living. We know that we are faced now with more and more extreme weather events. And unfortunately, the Liberals prefer to spend money and our taxpayers' money in subsidizing big oil rather than investing in protecting our communities and decreasing our addictions to fossil fuels. But I'm also hearing, of course, a lot of hurt and anger in the Green Party of Canada. Of course, the last few years have been difficult. Volunteers and our members have been keeping this party together for the past 2 years. And I believe it's crucial that now, as we move towards electing a new leader, that not only we make sure that this leadership race is a positive one and a good one for everyone. We've had, Elizabeth and I, several discussions with other candidates. I met with some of them in Ottawa just as recently as last weekend, and we are committed to ensuring that whoever wins will inherit a functioning Green Party that will be able to meet the challenges of Canada today. And these challenges, of course, include climate change, but they also include the Liberal government that's now exhausted after 8 years in government, and they include someone like Pierre Poilievre, who is very much a threat to all the things that we take for granted in this country: stability, good governance, strong institutions that are needed, so much needed for us to see us through the coming storms. So I'm very, very pleased to be working with Elizabeth on this. I believe that having two leaders, especially at this crucial junction in time for the party where there is much work that needs to be done in Parliament, but also outside of it until the next election, to rebuild the party, to meet with members, as I've been doing in BC and Ontario and soon in Alberta and Quebec, meeting with members and making sure that we have the infrastructure, the governance model that we need in order to achieve electoral gains in 2025. I'll stop here. Thanks.
Thanks so much, guys. You're over in the Magdalena. That's I don't know how to pronounce that. Sorry, I just saw a little bit on the CBC of how destroyed it is out there. It's crazy. Like, entire houses just moved to totally different lots. It's unbelievable. Yeah, good on you for being out there.
Well, it's key. I mean, it's part of our job as Greens, but also as politicians, to be there and meet with people and hear from them. And I'll be going back to Ottawa tomorrow, in fact, so that Elizabeth and I will be reporting back to Parliament on this during a press conference.
Oh, right on. Glad to hear that. I just wanted to give you something I saw in the chat here from I know, Elizabeth, that you're used to having more faces there. There are people watching. Alone as familiar faces in the crowd. One of them, I don't know if you met her, is my aunt. She had a nice little message there for you. It says, Elizabeth May, for those of us, myself included, who know and love you and appreciate everything you've done, I'm so glad to see you here and running for, and then she put in quotations, co-leader, because I guess it's a new term for her anyway.
Well, that's lots of love. It's good to, we will, I mean, obviously, as Jonathan said, he was visiting with Paul Manley twice in the last couple weeks. I miss him so much. Every single day in Parliament, I could break down and cry how much I miss Paul. It's just unbearable. So it's a top priority for us as co-leaders that your riding gets him back as the member of Parliament for Nanaimo Ladysmith. I've gotten to like Lisa Marie. I wish her well in retirement. Paul Manley needs to be the person who stands up when the speaker says the honorable member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Yes, wish her well in retirement. Sorry. For anyone who's watching who didn't know, by the way, Paul is running for city council in Nanaimo here right now. And you're welcome to join us for canvassing on Thursday.
Totally donate. He's got a website, easy to donate, Paul Manley, Nanaimo Council.
paulmanley.ca. Yeah, that's right. But we'll not, this is supposed to be about Elizabeth and Jonathan. I've already eaten up quite a bit of time here. So sorry to you two. So we'll get to the first question here from our EDA that we voted on here. So according to a recent Ipsos poll, only 34% of Canadians are concerned about climate change in a survey that they did of a variety of countries. And if you compare that to the average for other countries, it's about 48% of the population is fairly or very concerned about climate change. This is, despite Canada being one of the countries that's going to see the greatest temperature change out of any nation on Earth. How do we bring climate and environment back to front of mind in the context of all these other ongoing issues we've got for Canadians? We got 4 minutes for this question, so 8 minutes
Jonathan, do
for
you
the
mind
two
if
of
I
you.
go first? Because I have to say, I don't believe that number. I hate to be persnickety, but I've been working in the climate issue for so long, and we've never had Canadian polling show fewer than 80% of Canadians somewhat concerned. And I would think after what we went through last summer with the heat dome and the fires and the atmospheric rivers, BC, but also now Fiona, well, I'd find that number hard to believe, but okay, let's say it's right just for the purposes of argument. I think we have to focus on climate in a way that links it with the other concerns people have. So when we're in debate in Parliament, for instance, about cost of living and inflation, point out, well, inflation and the cost of living is go up for a couple of reasons. Putin invaded Ukraine, so we also ought to pay attention to foreign policy and peace building and peacemaking. We also know that there are real supply chain interruptions, things that are COVID related. But a big driver for increased costs for Canadians for just about everything is the climate crisis. So if you're looking particularly at food security and you look around the world, the price for just about everything, particularly in the area of, say, grains, and I recently did a householder for, how MPs get to send a newsletter to everybody in their community. I do it on themed issues, and I did one on inflation. I guess I could put it in the chat if I figure out how to do that. That talked about how this inflation is different from other things, other inflations we've experienced, other inflationary periods. Prices are going up for different reasons on different things. And really, when you look at, I use the example of ice cream, because we've just been going through ice cream prices have gone up. And one of the reasons ice cream vendors will tell you is that vanilla beans are grown in Madagascar, the biggest producer of vanilla beans. Madagascar went through 6 major typhoons and cyclones, and the price of vanilla beans is through the roof because of the climate crisis. As we have food insecurity, as we face the consequences of climate instability, it has a real impact. So whenever we talk through the lens of climate, we can also talk about what people's concerns are about the global security, about food security, about water, about biodiversity. We really need to focus more on the fact that we have an extinction crisis at the same time that we have a climate crisis. And the flip side of that, because Canadians don't like to hear what they think I'm doing all the time, which is doom. We are not helpless. We are not hopeless. We talk about climate and we talk about it honestly, because the truth is we're not out of time. We are close to it. But we have time to arrest the climate crisis before we pass various tipping points, points of no return that take us to an unlivable world. So as someone who's worked on climate for decades, I think it's critical that we, as a party, the worst thing we could do is decide, climate isn't an issue people are concerned about. No, our job is to be the truth tellers, the honest ones who say, yeah, it's coming, but we can do the following things: cancel Pedneault, cancel the TMX pipeline, ban fracking, and embrace those green new technologies that allow us to, as Jonathan was just saying, weather the storms. We need a lot of adaptation. We need to take care of each other, but we need to inspire confidence in Canadians that we are Greens with solutions that are positive, but we don't stop telling the truth, which is we're standing on the very edge of too late, but it's not too late.
Sorry, this is if it wasn't clear, it's question period. You guys can share the floor as you see fit. You still
So it's 4 minutes for me, and now it's 4 minutes for Jonathan.
Yeah. We're supposed to be I gotta correct Vic here. It's supposed to be a timer for the two of you together. So we gave you an individual timer. We'll be changing the format for the future questions. But
So is that for each or 2
so
minutes?
it's supposed to be 8 minutes total. And part of the test is how you guys share time. So
Excellent. Okay. Well,
it's a
Right down the
co-leadership
middle.
thing.
We're equal partners.
yes, we are.
Right on.
I mean, not much to say after what Elizabeth said, except that I think it's crucial that our party reduces the noise around our party and focuses on these issues that are so crucial. I mean, being here now in Atlantic Canada, it's very clear that people are concerned about climate. They have to live with it, and now they have to live in some cases without their own houses because of the climate emergency. So and the same applies to many parts of BC as well. So of course, all of these factors become extremely present in people's lives, and we can only expect that they become even more present in the future. Now you'll have to apologize, excuse me, because I am very tired, just as Elizabeth, but it's 1 hour later here on this island, so it's soon approaching 11. Look, I think it's crucial that we continue to also link the climate emergency with and the environment with everything else that it touches, and we need to be better at doing that work in terms of explaining how the environment is crucial for our economy, our health, education, and the protection of our communities and cities. Being able to see the devastation here, and I spoke with people who lost their houses, lost parts of their land here. These voices are multiplying throughout the country. The people of Lytton, of course, experienced horrible destruction last year. The heat waves and the heat domes are affecting so many communities throughout the country. I woke up not too long ago, 2 weeks ago in Vancouver, with finding the city as having the worst air quality of any place on the planet because of wildfires near Hope and in the mountains around. People in Edmonton and Alberta experienced these waves of smoke from wildfires as well. So clearly, the climate reality is becoming more and more present in people's lives, and I think we need to be better at linking how the climate emergency is impacting people in the immediate with how much worse it's going to get, because we know it is likely to become worse, and therefore we need a strong federal government that is able to invest in infrastructure that will protect our communities. I'll stop here. Thanks.
Great answers. So that's straight from the playbook of what we think about when we try not to think about climate change. We got to make it present and near, and yeah, appreciate that. You shared a link here, Elizabeth. I'm just going to go and share it to the YouTube chat.
Oh,
here so
thank you. What that is what it's the newsletter that I sent all my constituents. So I was hesitant and worried about sending it because I'm basically saying things aren't going to get better, which is a weird thing for a politician to tell our constituents. They're saying, look at the book, The Long Emergency. We're looking here at some real realities, some real constraints. This is not like don't, if somebody says, oh, it's just going to be great just around the corner, we're going to have wonderful economic growth and everything's going to be just fine. I mean, that's the usual soundtrack from the NDP, the Conservatives, the Liberals. So I wrote something for my constituents. So I'm sharing it with you because you can find it online. And it talks about this inflation being different. It talks about, it uses the example of the Madagascar vanilla beans, but other examples, because I think Canadians are grown-ups, and I think they'd like to hear from leaders who respect intelligence and say, look, we can get through this together, but we're not going to tell you fairy tales.
Appreciate that very much. That's related to an audience question that we'll get to a little bit later. I think the person will like to hear that tone. That book, you recommended a book. It's called The Long Emergency.
Yes, it's by Kunstler. It was written a long time ago, and I was reminded of it. James Kunstler wrote it in 2000. 2005. The full title is The Long Emergency, Surviving the Converging Catastrophes of the 21st Century. That's a book everyone wants to grab and read, really cheery. But it was Andrew Nikiforuk, and of course he's one of my heroes, and you guys will remember, of course, he was in Campbell River for quite a while and endorsed our candidates and was hugely helpful. But as a writer, I think he's, just second to none. Anyway, he wrote a piece in the Tyee in the context of this inflationary cycle and the way governments are responding, to say, you know what, this is something we've seen coming, and the long emergency means we're going to have to think differently. The solutions that worked for other periods of economic planning and adjusting the Bank of Canada rate and so on, it's unlikely to work this time. So that's where I thought, do I dare write this to my constituents? But I'm getting amazing response so far. People are saying, this is so helpful. It explains the economics of the situation. Of course, I won't go on because I'm thinking I'm breaking your format, Derek, but I do
Appreciate
call
that.
to my constituents, the profits the oil and gas industry is making right now, they're war profiteers. That's what they are. They're only making this kind of money. They're raking in record profits because Putin invaded Ukraine. This should be taxed back as war profiteering at 30% tax rate, and we'd have about $8 billion. And I like to think of it as 8,000 million because it makes it clearer what a billion is. So $8,000 million would be very handy right about now to make sure that people who are falling between the cracks get.
Yeah. That is a that is a sickening but accurate way to look at it, war profiteering. I'll get to our next question here, so we stay on track. This is without introducing too much of my own personal opinion here. I'll just say, because there seemed to have been a little bit of confusion with our previous leader, the question high on our minds here is, what do you consider the role of party leader to be? This is 5 minutes for each of you, so 10 minutes together, and Vic's going to show you the timer at halfway at 5 minutes. So over to you guys.
À toi la parole.
Ben oui, je vais y aller. I'll go first. Again, apologies. I'm really tired, so I'll probably keep it shorter than 5 minutes, which is probably good anyway. Again, as I said, I come to politics from the world of journalism and research. So for me, listening is key. Asking questions is key. Trying to understand, and also having the humility of knowing that one doesn't understand everything is key. That there's much that we can learn from one another, and living that example is how I see leadership. Living through example, leading through example, prioritizing the needs of others before one's own. That is what I see as good leadership. It's very clear that this party expects its leaders to be good spokespersons for its policies and its values, but it also needs its leaders to inspire and galvanize this incredible energy that is present throughout the country, especially not only among youth. I was about to say, especially among youth, but in fact throughout the population. We see a lot of people who are, as we were saying, becoming more and more concerned about the climate emergency, and they know that the promises the Liberals have done are not good enough because they're not acted upon. And so we need to galvanize this energy. We need to organize it. There's so much that we can learn from some of the more successful EDAs, such as yours, who have managed to elect Green MPs, and that experience needs to be shared with other EDAs. I see my job, at least for the first year, is very much continuing the work that I'm doing right now, which is to travel throughout the country, to meet with Greens face to face, to have small group discussions, to share experiences from one place to another, but also to act as a convener as much as possible of spaces that where Greens can strengthen one another. I believe much of the crisis that we've experienced, at least over the past couple of weeks, is the result of a lack of communications and poor communications between a number of good-willed individuals who have given a lot to the party and can still give a lot to the party because they are committed to the cause, but have been working on extremely difficult, complex problems from their kitchen banks on Zoom calls, the way we've all been doing for the past 2 years because of the pandemic. They've never met in person. They haven't had the chance of building trust. And that I think that's something that's crucial. In my previous career, I've worked with teams of journalists in the Central African Republic and in South Sudan with local journalists whose house were being burned, who had to flee, who lost some of their family members, but still had to report about the ongoing conflict in a responsible manner. And I know how to not only talk to people who are experiencing difficult times in their lives, but bring them to work as a team to achieve good results. And I think and would expect that from the leader of our party. I'll stop there because I'm tired, but also because I'm sure Elizabeth wants to jump in. So go for it.
Thanks, Jonathan. Well, I'm really looking forward to co-leadership because I think the job sharing aspect is going to be awesome. But when I was leader, I understood the job of leader was to be the chief spokesperson, but also to operate through service leadership. So I was very much, I never asserted that my way or the highway, because how could you do that in a council where you have one vote? I'm fascinated by the mythology of various things I allegedly did, but I don't know. I used to say to some of the journalists, but you're the leader of the party. Why don't you just insist? I start saying, leader schmeeder, your job is to do work for the membership. The members are under our values, the leaders of the party. And in between biannual general meetings, it's the federal council, and the leader is one vote out of a council. I guess it's 18 people. And the job is largely to the outside world to say, we are the Green Party, join us. We offer these ideas. I think the difference that there will be for me, if we're so fortunate as to be elected as leaders, we do have to bring forward the positions of doesn't exist right now. But as Amita Kuttner, I should stop and thank them. Amita has been working very hard and really holding things together and doing an amazing amount of work in media that people just don't really, I don't think we all see how much work they're doing. But Amita Kuttner appointed Angel Eyes, of course, that's Angela Davidson's Fairy Creek name, and Luc Jolicoeur as their deputy leaders. That's the right of a leader to appoint co-leaders. It's interesting in terms of team building. The previous leader never appointed deputies, disbanded shadow cabinet, never appointed a new cabinet. I think one of the key jobs, particularly as I look at it now that I did that hasn't been done in a while, is team building. And you need to have, it's never one person, it's not two people. We need to figure out how do we support and mobilize EDA leadership, folks like you guys, and I'm a Ladysmith, people across the country who have been working hard on the front lines, talking to their neighbors about the Green Party. Now, we need to give them a good story to tell. We need to tell people, okay, turn the page on that. Sorry you guys all saw that, but we got our act together now and we're back. And the new story of the Green Party is, in politics, the comeback kid. Like, what? So-and-so crossed the floor to join the Greens? What? Now they're electing Greens everywhere? Okay. Because I am absolutely committed that at the end of the next election, we have 12 MPs and are a recognized party and are able through that to be much more effective on the things that matter, whether it's nuclear disarmament, guaranteed livable income, climate crisis, obviously, protecting old growth. Obviously, there's a short list of things we have to do, getting proportional representation, basic democracy. And now we're in a time where democracy itself is threatened by things I never thought would contaminate Canadian politics. The idea that white supremacy is a thing and that social media can attract young white kids to get guns and get ammunition and go to a bank.
So your internet's quite choppy there, Elizabeth. It's cut completely out. I'm not sure. You got about as far as talking about how social media is radicalizing young white men. And you are completely frozen at this point. So I'm sure you'll hear this when you get back, or we'll hear your response when you get back. Oh, there you're back now. Can you hear us? Hmm. Um, one of the workarounds to this with poor internet is it is possible to shut your video off, and then the bandwidth will go entirely to the audio, because I suppose what you're saying is the more important part of the information, which is unfortunate. But
There, are you guys able to hear me? I'm sorry, since my internet, which I'm stationary and in my apartment, it usually doesn't cut in and out. I'm very sorry.
oh, you're super clear now. It's made your image smaller. It says your network bandwidth is low. So that's, oh, and
I
it's
don't know.
gone
I
big
could
again.
turn off the video. I could turn off the video camera if that helps. What do you think? But anyway,
Um,
I'll leave it like this for now. We'll see how we do.
yeah. I'll give you a wave if it starts to get really bad again. And
Okay.
and that'll be the first thing we can do, is turn the video off to get the audio through. Yeah,
Some kind of, there's a guy who looks like Pierre Poilievre is outside. He's got tinfoil. I don't know if that affects my video.
You're funny. I don't know if people tell you that enough.
He is funny. Yes.
It's still under warranty was a banger.
My
from earlier.
entire political career is a warm-up act to getting on this hour's 22 minutes as a regular. That's like,
Yeah.
shh.
Well, if this doesn't work out, you always get the stand up, right? Yeah, I don't want to open up a whole conversation about this, but I really appreciate you mentioning how social media is radicalizing people. It's making people have lost the ability to disagree constructively, because we do all of our communication through social media, and we don't have these disagreements in person anymore. And getting in these little pockets. Everybody should quit Facebook and Instagram. Everybody watching this forever, and Twitter, unless they fix their algorithms to not be biased towards terrible things. Anyway, that's my rant. So next question we've got, Neil, if you don't mind, is we suffered a huge loss in the last election. As you're well aware, our worst performance in about 20 years, I think. Abysmal, gut-wrenching. Everyone was depressed over here. More of a consolation party, I suppose. So what are the most important steps to rebuild our membership and gain public support and trust? And we got 6 minutes for that, so 12 minutes between the two of you.
Jonathan, do you want to grab it first, or should I? Up to you.
I can go first.
Okay, you go.
I think we clearly have identified over the past little while that there are governance issues within this party. So I think we need to address that. We need to build the trust that's needed for all of the structures within our party, whether it's the funds, the federal council, the caucus, our staff, for all of these parts to be moving in the same, or perhaps not always in the same direction, but at least with trust together, to strengthen the party and make sure that we are able to elect more MPs. We clearly need to run a full slate. That was not done during the last election. We need to make sure that we identify and nominate good candidates well in advance of any election. And we need to make sure that we don't lose good people and good candidates like Paul or others like Mike, for example, who had run in a previous election and was elected the second time, because there is name recognition that is built through these campaigns, and it's important that we are able as a party to retain these good candidates and make sure that they are empowered and able to build on their electoral success from year to year. The more doors they knock on, the better for their chances. And most certainly, I mean, we also need good leadership. We need good spokespersons who are able to speak to national media, to defend green values, defend the party when it is being attacked, people who understand media, people who understand how to deal with media, and people who are able to inspire new members to join the party. I think we need more volunteers. We can't rely all the time on a small pool of volunteers who are working so extremely hard all the time and oftentimes becoming exhausted from it and not seeing so much rewards. So it's important for whoever wins this election, this leadership contest, to really empower the EDAs, I think, and make sure that that we can learn from them, to make sure that the EDAs also have a seat at the table as part of the national campaign and can participate in the national campaign strategy, in the design of that strategy. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I'd say one of the things that just to share with all of you, and I don't, if you know Paul, I'm sure you'd know this, that the members of parliament weren't engaged in any aspect of the campaign. We were kept out of the loop, and I wasn't allowed to start my nomination process for months from when the council said nominations will open on a date certain. So as somebody who hasn't been on the inside at all since 2019, I'm really keen to be a member of council again, to say, did we find out what happened? Because under our constitution, we're not allowed to have, like, we had almost 90 empty ridings. It makes no sense to me. I'd love an explanation for how that happened to make sure it can't happen again. I mean, we can have our suppositions as to how it happened, but in point of fact, I don't know how it was possible. So when you have a full slate, no Green candidate, of course our popular vote fell. Our popular vote also fell because we didn't have an actual campaign. The platform was put together very much at the last minute and so on. So we know how to run good campaigns, and we know where we made mistakes in 2019 and 2015. We don't have to just look at 2021. That was for sure the worst result. But I've learned a lot from other campaigns and thought, okay, and as Jonathan says, if the EDAs have a seat at the table, if candidates and campaign managers are plugged in to the communication is always the most important thing. And I'd really like to have a campaign where there's full information, good communication, flowing both ways. I think that we will bring our vote up for sure. We have the perfect, let me just talk about the pluses. The table is set for us to clean up, because the Liberals have been getting a free ride from the NDP. How are the NDP candidates going to have a leg to stand on what they've done? The BC NDP has betrayed every promise on old growth, on climate change, on proportional representation. Don't get me going on the Horgan government. And then you look at Jagmeet Singh and the claim, I said to one of my friends in the NDP caucus, you guys like to say you're holding the Liberals' feet to the fire. With this deal, you're just going to hold their feet to the comfy chair. You're going to scare them with, we're coming with the comfy chair. They're giving them a free ride for 4 years in exchange for one promise. I mean, it's a good promise. It was in our platform first, dental care for children, dental care for everyone. But when we go into the next election, there are going to be also a lot of progressive conservatives who think, I don't really want to vote for Pierre Poilievre, Mr. Bitcoin, Mr. Convoy. I don't want to vote for him. So I think we've got the best historical opportunity ever, as soon as we get leadership that knows how to get our house in order, apologize profusely to everyone, and get ourselves to a place where we're electing at least 12 MPs and we can start lining up those EDAs and those candidates that are electable and that we're going to elect. And it starts with Paul and then I'm a Ladysmith, but it doesn't finish there. We've got to re-elect Mike Morris in Kitchener Center. We've got to win back Fredericton. I won't go through all of the list because I think it would be better if we don't take the full time on this. I think we're at about halfway, Vic said, so let's stop there. But we know how to win ridings and you guys know how to do it. And we need to make sure the national campaign is supporting you, not.
Oh, you just cut your last couple words off there, but yeah, national campaign supporting us.
Supporting you and not undermining you is what the national campaign team should not be something where, as in my writing over the years, say, oh, let's hope they don't come here. But not this last time. I'm talking 2019.
Yeah.
We really were trying to put together, we had such a great rally on August 15th last summer. Oh man. Okay. Yeah, we need to make sure the national campaign team is competent, professional, inclusive, supportive of local campaigns and candidates and people, whether they're running in a riding where they really don't have a hope of electing a Green, but they're valiant and they're out there working hard. We need to respect that. We need to support our candidates and their teams across the country. And nobody has the right to say a candidate doesn't get to run. Our rules say that if a leader doesn't want to sign the nomination papers, they need a supermajority of council to back them up. So again, as I said, I don't know what happened last time, but we should have, if we don't have a candidate in a riding, it should be because we've realized for some strategic or ethical reason it would be better not to. But this wholesale abandoning, we didn't have a single candidate in Newfoundland and Labrador. What does that say to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador? Anyway.
Jesus, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. We had candidates who wanted to run, they weren't approved.
Wow. Yeah. I took words right out of my mouth and music to a lot of people's ears, I'm sure, especially those working closely in the campaign about not about the federal campaign not undermining us but supporting us. So definitely a number of times we had to distance ourselves and run on Paul's merits alone, which nothing wrong with that. Paul's a great guy. So thanks for those answers, guys. Next question. This is a short one. Could just be a yes no if you want. If a by-election were to be called in Canada in a riding away from your home riding, which we had a chance of winning, would you be willing to move there and run in that riding? And follow-up related question, would you be willing to relocate to run in a winnable riding for the next general election? I don't think the second question really applies to you, Elizabeth, but yeah, would you relocate for a by-election and would you relocate in the general election to a more winnable riding?
Well, I guess that's a question mostly for me then.
Sorry, it's 2 minutes, so 4 minutes total between the two of you.
That's all good. I think it's key and crucial that I run in Quebec for a number of reasons. I mean, we've got to build our presence here. I think it's one of the advantages of having this co-leadership model with someone who's francophone as I am, who has deep roots in the province. My mother comes from 3 hours north of Quebec City, so as far out in the woods as one can get. And I like to joke, my family comes from a place that produces a lot of blueberries, and some monks out there produce blueberries dipped in chocolate. And so people here and I like to joke and present myself as a chocolate dipped blueberry, basically, which is a good way of introducing myself to people of that region of Lac Saint Jean, especially. I think there will be winnable ridings in Quebec. Quebec is a place that, as we saw with the Orange Wave, is a place that can switch quite quickly. We now have a provincial election where Québec Solidaire, which is a very progressive party that's very strong on the environment, is polling very high. I know I know their leader well. I think it's possible for us to produce strong alliances and strong links with that party. They have a very good organization on the ground, and build on that. But in order to do that, we will require some time. This is not the kind of stuff that will happen overnight. in that context, of course, if there was to be a federal election before 2025, I think my priority would be to make sure that as many MPs are elected in the places that can elect Green MPs. I think at that point, if indeed we entered into an election period before 2025, I'd want to have discussions with the federal council and various EDAs and see what they would like me to do. But my priority for sure is to build a strong presence in Quebec for this party and make sure that we elect a number of MPs from Quebec. And my second priority for the party is to make sure that we have as many MPs as possible, generally speaking, and that will require me to put other candidates ahead of me and ahead of my own interest. Yeah, I think that's also important. Yeah,
I really want Jonathan in Parliament. So we've got. Let me just say, when you refer to Quebec Solidaire, by the way, that's the only party in Canada with co-leaders. So Jonathan's closer friends with Gabrielle, who's the young man co-leader, and Manon, who was the older woman leader. So I tend to march with Manon in the pride parades in Montreal. Quebec Solidaire is I think a lot of federal Greens who are Quebecers tend to vote Quebec Solidaire. They're polling so well they may even form official opposition. But I would say, obviously, the question is a hypothetical to me, but it's also my history. I moved because the party told me to move. I left my home in Nova Scotia. It's the last home I'll probably ever own. I fixed it up. I had solar panels on the roof. I had all my insulation done. I thought I was never going to move from my home in New Glasgow, and I was near my parents. Well, my mom had passed away, but my dad was. It was a big sacrifice to move. Not that I don't love Vancouver Island. I do, but it was hard leaving family. So I did that then. I would want Jonathan to pick the riding in Quebec, where he has the best chance of getting elected. So it's not necessarily Lac Saint-Jean. Maybe it'll be something in Montreal. And if there's a by-election, we go for it all out to get Jonathan elected. And there's one other aspect. I'm not sure if I have enough time to mention it, Vic, but the Greens in Germany went into the last election, and for the first time ever for German Greens, they put a candidate forward as chancellor. And so they have co-leaders in Germany, and they, between the two of them, and then they ratified it with membership, they picked one of them to be the candidate for chancellor. So depending on when next election, we'll be thinking about one of us has to take on the legal writ requirements of Elections Act that does the quote unquote leader-like things, including the debates. We won't be one of us in one debate and the other in the other. I really want Jonathan elected. I love the idea that he's the one that's in the debates in 2025 and not me. But we'll see, because it is, as he said, it depends on the timing, depends on when the election happens, and depends what our membership and council.
Oh, sorry, your internet cut out there again, but that was
Oh,
the
darn.
Oh, and the time you got there.
Sorry.
That's okay.
we did in membership.
Didn't really get any of that, but the substance of your answer was really clear there. Yeah, got to go hard on by-elections. I mean, that is how Paul won. You know, that's how we got elected in the first place. It's our biggest opportunities, right?
I will say that I think, at least for me and from my perspective, it is crucial that we have a functioning party. And right now, as you all know, our party has been suffering quite a bit from a lot of unrest. I think it should be the priority number one for whoever is elected leader to make sure that we have a party that's able to elect more MPs, that has control over its communications, that has strong, engaged EDAs throughout the country before focusing on getting a leader that is not in Parliament, elected in Parliament. That is really my focus here. I want to make sure that I empower you and that I work for you and with you before focusing on getting myself elected. I just want to put that out there. If there is a by-election in Quebec before that work is done, and I reckon it's going to take at least a year of me traveling throughout the country and making sure that we have these important discussions. If that by-election happens before we collectively feel that we have control over our party, I don't think it's wise for me to try and run in an election. I think that the priority in my efforts should be directed at empowering you first before seeking a seat in parliament. So I'll just say that.
Okay. Great. Thanks, guys. Next question we've got is about the economy. You, I think, both touched on this in the first question we asked about bringing climate change back to center of mind for folks. With this recent inflation issue we got going on, life seems more unaffordable than at any time in recent memory. And we still have the combined issue of a lot of basic government services not operating well, like healthcare, for example, I think is the most glaring example. What do you see as the best means to tackle this issue of unaffordability and inflation? That's 5 minutes, so 10 minutes between the two of you.
I think I'll jump in. And by the way, Derek, I just tried to do something different with my internet. I hope the signal's stronger. I think we have to call out economic growth. I mean, if the elephant in the room is that we have a constant pressure for economic growth, that the GDP must be served, this giant monstrous economy is more important than well-being. Jonathan has a turn of phrase that I quite like, that what we need to offer Canadians is the good life. What's that look like? And it may be, and it's the phrase that I've always loved that was Gandhian, that we put in the Earth Charter, that we recognize that having more can never replace being more. Now, that doesn't mean the idea that we always are put up against it when the media says, well, Canadians aren't going to be willing to sacrifice. We have to describe a steady state economy or a donut economy, a circular economy, in ways that make people want it. Because the unending quest for constant economic growth is eating the planet alive and not delivering well-being. And so I think we have to call that out. I think, unfortunately, I'm afraid that the actions of the Fed in the US and the central bank in Canada is likely to cause a recession that's going to come at us relatively soon. That always harms those who are least economically viable. I mean, let's just face it, there's a tremendous amount of wealth in this country held by a handful of people. So we do need a wealth tax. We do need a tax on as I said, the war profiteering, but at least the windfall profits of big oil. We need to bring in a guaranteed livable income as a response in advance to what we know is coming in artificial intelligence and the world of work. And the Canadian Labour Congress dealt with this a couple of years ago with a really excellent report on the future of the world of work, pointing out that with artificial intelligence, all bets are off. Things are going to be very different. I think Canadians are more ready for that conversation than ever, strangely enough, because of CERB. Because in COVID, we saw without question, if you need money you're going to get $2,000 a month if you're stuck right now. Now, I have to say frontline workers weren't able to benefit from that enough. You talk about the healthcare situation, that's a whole nother conversation. We have to protect public, single payer, universal healthcare. We have to make sure nobody goes towards privatization. There's some big challenges there, but we need to keep the wheels on the bus on. I think a lot of Canadians feel like, I can't get a passport, can't get a visa, can't get a doctor, can't buy a house. It feels like the wheels of the bus are falling off. We have to give people the confidence to know that with appropriate policies that are geared to social justice and economic well-being and stability, that is not about unending economic growth. And we can bury neoliberalism. It's been proven to be a bad idea. It's over. So we do now, as a result of COVID again, have a higher degree of acceptance that there's a role for government in the public sphere. That's a big change, and we need to harness that and also make sure that it's not used and weaponized as it's been to say, by some of these far right disinformation websites. We actually have to keep the people who are drawn to conspiracy theories in a conversation with us. We have to reach out and keep them from falling into a dangerous place where our institutions are undermined, because we can't survive without democracy and functional governments.
Yeah, I think it's clear that COVID has shifted a number of people's view about their own livelihood and their own wellness. With people working from home, with people having more time in certain cases to spend with their family, in some cases with their loved ones. I think there's a growing desire on the part of a lot of Canadians to find more balance between their own lives and the pursuit of economic well-being or more income, because at the end of the day, as you pointed out, wages are not that high and prices are going up, and it's becoming more and more difficult for people to save money and buy a house or cover their general expenses. So I think finding a way to talk to Canadians about how we as a party can further a discussion about a reform of our economy and our economic models is the way to go. And the best way to do that, I think, is by engaging directly with Canadians and asking them what exactly makes you thrive. Why? What makes you happy? How can we find a better way of living? And I think most people would say, well, it would be to again have time, spend more time with my children, spend more time with my parents, spend more time with my friends. And we nowadays, as Elizabeth was saying, we live at a time of extraordinary technological advances with AI and the robotization of so many industries, and big corporations are making historic profits, and they're not taxed enough. The federal government has a role to play in advancing the agenda of fighting tax havens internationally, and that's something that's work that's already started not too long ago. But the Canadian government could and should do much more to ensure that big companies such as Amazon and Facebook and Alphabet cannot profit all too much from our workforce here at home. So all in all, I think the Green Party needs to rekindle the discussion around the good life, and we need to find a way to listen to the suggestions that Canadians bring forward.
Thanks, Jonathan. And Elizabeth, I really appreciate your tone about that, though, redefining what the good life is. What happened during COVID when everybody was given CERB, everyone started riding bikes and gardening again, talking to their neighbors, right? Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to the next question we got here. And I also appreciate your comments, Elizabeth, about the infinite growth in a finite system. It's that old exponential riddle. If a pond's going to be completely full on the 30th day, on which day is it half full? 29th day, right? So the next question we got is, do you believe it is moral to use housing as an investment? That's 8 minutes between the two of you.
Nope.
Simple answer. Simple question. That's the simplest answer we've gotten so far.
I think sometimes it's good to just be clear. We could rant on and on about real estate investment trusts, and we could go on. I mean, we just actually earlier today, Mike Morris and I were meeting with a lot of good folks on the housing community. Mike is tabling a motion in Parliament soon. It's a lot like Paul Manley's one from last session, but Mike's added more. And it's all about just trying to say the obvious. Houses, homes are for people to live in, and we have to stop the predatory practices of taking homes out of any place that people can own them. I mean, the best article about this, Bill Reese at UBC, I think UBC, Bill Reese. Do you know Bill Reese? He's the one who created the concept of ecological footprint. But he wrote an article a bunch of years ago now, I guess it was in the Tyee, saying, look, people used to be able to buy houses in a community because people selling houses wouldn't price them at a level where someone who lived in that neighborhood, who worked at that factory, who had that job and worked at that pulp mill, you knew what the wages were. The houses were tied to local economy and what local people could afford. When housing became globalized, when we unhooked our homes from home place, and we allowed them to become the stuff of globalized investment, that's when we began to lose track of the ability to buy and own your own home. So we have to cut that out. We have to cut out, whether it's the pension funds or the REITs or the whatever, we have to make sure homes are priced for local communities at the rate that local communities can own them. It's not necessarily simple, but the concept is simple. So there are a lot of different debates about how you do that. I know it's Paul Kershaw at UBC has done a lot of good work on housing with a bunch of academics across Canada. So, but the question was simple. Is it moral? No.
Nothing to add there except that I grew up with a single mom. We moved from apartment to apartment during my childhood. It was difficult economically for my mom to afford some of these apartments sometimes, depending on the work and her health situation. The housing crisis that we have right now is appalling for a country as rich as ours. For people to be left without a roof is a travesty of everything that makes us Canadian, and which is generosity and helping one another. And for a very long time, I would come back to North America from various places out in Sudan or Ethiopia or Yemen, and come back to New York full of expectations that, oh, I'm back in North America. This is going to be just like Canada because I'm not thinking straight. And when I get to New York, I see homelessness everywhere. I'm like, oh gosh, this is horrendous. This is so violent. This society is so violent. And for the first time now, coming back to Canada after a few years abroad in the spring and going to places like Toronto, I had the same feeling. Long lines of people waiting for food aid, homeless camps in places like Kitchener and Guelph. This country is turning violent and is becoming violent on its population, and the reason for that is that we've allowed for these inequalities to grow. We've allowed for people to own houses, to use these houses in order to buy more and more. And that makes it just much more difficult for people like me or my mom and others to afford rent or to in fact eventually buy a place of their own. So no.
Couldn't agree more with everything you just said there. So thanks for the answers, guys. This is the end of our pre-selected questions. We've gone a bit longer than I expected, and so I'm gonna leave a decision up to you two here. We're sitting at 7:41 right now, and we did, as discussed earlier, want to make a hard stop at 8, so that's 20 minutes from now, which means that you guys would have, and we have 7 audience questions lined up here. So It's up to you if you want to shorten your closing remarks or extend the length of this interview a bit longer, or just be
I
quick
think
with the questions.
I'm happy to skip closing remarks so that we make sure we have time for the questions that come from the community. I'm also going to be, Jonathan, forgive me, I'm going to say it out loud because I sometimes get all mom-like. You got a cold. You're really tired. You've just been touring the damage of Ile de Madeleine. If you need to bail and get some sleep,
have to,
I
to
just want to say it's okay with me if you have to bail.
Thank you. Well, I might indeed.
Not everybody's as young and strong as me, man. It's okay.
I mean, you got 2 new knees, bionic at this point. You've got upgrades relative.
I've got an hour earlier than Jonathan, where he is in Atlantic Canada.
Yeah. Well, Elizabeth has 2 new knees and 2 new knees and the hip as well.
2 new hips, 2 new knees. My husband says the only joint left to go is the jaw.
Yeah, and I've got a new spine as well after surgery in November. So we're both
we're kind of bionic.
Yeah, but unfortunately, yes, I've been struggling with a bit of a cold, which has been a bit tiring. So I apologize for my long-winded answers now, and I'm a bit. I'm not on the top of my game tonight. It's been a long day out in the rain and talking to people. So with your permission, I would love to meet with some of you guys in Nanaimo in a couple of weeks. I'll be back out in BC, and I'll let Elizabeth answer some of these questions, and I will probably go to bed with all the
No. But Tim. Best. À
demain. Yeah. So thank you so much for organizing this, Derek. And I'm very sorry once again. But I'll have to bail.
No. Okay. I'm glad you trust me.
People can follow up with your portion of the campaign at jonathanpedneault.ca.
Correct. Yes. And I'll share a link from the work I've been doing on Magdalena Island now. I don't know if you can put it on the.
Yeah, I'll transfer it over to the YouTube there.
Thank you.
And I'll send the link to this YouTube video once it's up over to you, so you can share out.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on, Jonathan. It was really nice to meet you. I look forward to meeting you in person.
Yes, me too. Yeah. I'll be over there very soon.
Yeah. Right on.
All right.
See you.
Bonne nuit. That's the extent of my French.
Yeah.
Also, I could say je ne parle pas français.
Well, I'm really so grateful that Jonathan's running with me. You can see, I mean, even when he's exhausted but man, I mean, it's like when he tells stories about what he's gone through in terms of going into places. I mean, I don't know if you caught, they said he was 17 when he went into Darfur, smuggled in by Sudanese rebels. And he was with Sacha Trudeau, the current prime minister's brother, because he convinced Sacha Trudeau that Darfur was an issue and they ought to together make a film documentary. So he talked Radio Canada into it. I mean, I'm just blown away by Jonathan Pedneault. And I think his youth and his inspirational view of the world is really going to make a difference for our party. So anyway, I'll shut up about it. But we have. I'm really super grateful that we're in a partnership, because the last thing in the world, I mean, I'm going to get it anyway. Oh, there she comes. She is the only one. She's like out of the crypt, and she thinks only she can run the Green Party. It's like, no, actually, no, I don't. But anyway, I'll shut up now and try to take those questions and not waste your time.
Well, it's a pleasure to hang out with you, but I think the audience wants to hear answers to the things they've asked. So the first question we got here is from my friend Jim, who's also on the EDA, but he popped this question in here first. I'm just going to read it verbatim because this is a conversation topic that him and I have talked about. He brings this up at every interview, so everyone expects it who's been tuning in at this point. Like Macron said, we have a duty to speak frankly in the times we face. I don't understand where you got this stat from. I'm pretty sure it's just wrong, but this video conference will emit the same amount of CO2 as driving an internal combustion engine for 2,400 kilometers. That's just false, but maybe you meant something else. To electrify the BC fleet of ICE vehicles will take the equivalent of 5 Site C dams Humanity appropriates 40% of all net primary productivity, the only energy that supports life within this planet. The way we live is far beyond the limit of sustainability. Are you willing to speak frankly about the need for a rapid and drastic dial back in living standards? Are you willing to speak frankly and call for the necessity of sacrifice and responsibility rather than appealing to the enervating hope of maintaining the current level of civilization? Will you recognize that climate change is a symptom rather than the root issue?
Okay. First of all, I thank you, Derek, for saying that you also think that's not an accurate stat, because when you read that, I think there are energy costs to Zoom meetings, and I think they're on the order of a fraction of a mile for a call like this, but I'm not going to get into the stats. Am I willing to? I have often. And if you find the link that we posted earlier, you'll find that I actually wrote my constituents and said our standard of living is not sustainable. We need to, live more lightly on the land. And basically, I describe it as, can we go back to like the 1960s, 1970s version of how we lived? That wasn't exactly the Stone Age, but we were consuming a lot less then, and we cannot sustain our current levels of consumption. That's the reality. Climate change, yes, we can say it's a symptom, and what main causes. I already mentioned economic growth, but I also mentioned greed. And I also think that the notion of sacrifice, we can turn on its head. I'm prepared to make tons of sacrifices, and I always have in terms of my work in the movement, but I think that we're actually offering something to people who feel lost in the global equivalent of a shopping mall. We need to offer people hope and an understanding. The not to get too philosophical about the unexamined life is not worth living, but when your life has real meaning, you really have more for mental health, sustaining yourself, for your family. Can I tell a quick anecdote, Derek? It'll take like 10 seconds, but when I was fighting Agent Orange, you wouldn't know I was fighting Agent Orange necessarily. It's all so long ago, but I fought Agent Orange in Nova Scotia, and and we were fighting in a court case, and my mom came down to visit me. I was trying to finish law school while also fighting Agent Orange, and she was, we were losing everything. And she'd been sitting there forever waiting to try to get a repair done on our old car. And the mechanic came out. He said to her, "I recognize you from the news." And she said, "Yeah." She said, "You're the ones fighting Agent Orange." She said, "I envy you. Your life means something." My mom came back just blown away that this lovely mechanic, had said to her, "Your life has meaning. I wish mine did." So ever since then, I know how blessed I am that I've always been in a life of struggle for meaning, struggle for the planet. Time's up.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I really think it's when we're trapped, we've been pushing ourselves further and further away from other folks, and that drives us further and further into consumption. It's the re-examining the good life, right? Yeah. Next question. So we've set a short time limit for all these questions so we can actually get through all of them and you can actually get to bed. So we're just going to say 2 minutes answer for each of these questions. This is from Carol Tudil. What are you doing to reinstate Alex Terrell? What are you doing to ensure the executive is accountable for the decision to oust him? And how will you ensure the executive is to be democratically accountable?
Yeah, if I'd been asked, I would have said that I would not have voted to expel Alex Terrell. I was not asked. I had no role in that. What I'm doing now, I have no role in that. If I'm back on council, we can revisit the decision. I don't know what their reasons were. I'm not privy to any of it, but I think it was a very bad idea.
Simple question, simple answer. Don, what do we got next there, Neil? Okay, no, sorry, she rephrased that question, Neil, as a question. So let's just move on to the next one, and we'll get to the substance of that one in a moment. Sorry about this, everybody. How do we bury neoliberalism? This is from Bronwyn Bryce.
Well, it has failed, and that's one of the things that and Joseph Stiglitz, as a Nobel Prize winning economist, has definitely written this up numerous times. It's obvious that the era of neoliberalism, less regulation, government has no place in your life, trade liberalization, all of things have brought us to doom. So we should bury neoliberalism by naming its failures. It's one of John Kenneth Galbraith's great lines, so as to say that the tragedy of neoliberalism is that the ideas have been tried and they don't work. So bury it.
It's buried its own grave. Yeah, just got to communicate that well enough. Great. Okay, so here's another
Actually,
question.
I remember I misquoted John Kenneth Galbraith. He said the tragedy of Milton Friedman is that his ideas have been tried. So just okay. There we go.
That's the
Sorry.
guy. Yeah, Friedman. He's the one, the neoliberal economist. Okay, so this might be a bit of a controversial question for folks. Putting you in the hot seat here, I suppose. This is from Bronwyn as well. Will you please explain your reason for interfering in the last leadership race, especially after saying you would stay out of it? Were you concerned because of the candidate that was doing well? I don't know which candidate she's referring to.
I didn't interfere in the leadership race, let me say, and I'm very grateful for a hard question. I was asked by the Leadership Contest Committee to fundraise for candidates from equity-seeking groups. This was because, to go back into this, I didn't get a chance to vote on the leadership rules. I had left the leadership role. Joanne Roberts was interim leader. And when I saw the leadership rules, I thought the amount of money they wanted candidates to raise was way out of reach of people. And I had a good friend, I won't mention who it was, who was an Indigenous woman that I was hoping would run for leader. And she looked at that and said, I can't raise that kind of money. So in my process of complaining, the Leadership Contest Committee said, well, they're there. We've got a good idea. Don't complain. You're a good fundraiser. You can fundraise for people from equity seeking groups. And then they gave me the list. So I wrote identical letters. If any of you want to see them, I will send them to you. An identical letter for Annamie Paul, an identical letter for Amita Kuttner, an identical letter for Miriam Haddad, because I could say, I'm introducing someone to you. I'm not endorsing anyone. This person was so impressive. I put them on my shadow cabinet. The structure of the letter worked for all three of the people I was told. Then what happened, and this is one of the reasons, I mean, if this hadn't gone the way I'm saying it did, obviously Amita Kuttner and I would not still be friends. But what happened was Amita and Miriam got mad at the Leadership Contest Committee for a new definition of equity seeking groups, which completely ignored the issues of intersectionality. So it's a long, long story. I'll just say it was extremely painful for me, not to feel sorry for me. It's my fault. I thoroughly apologize. When they came up with this idea that I should fundraise for some candidates and not others, I should have said, that's a terrible idea. I'm not going to do it. But it got even worse because in the end, people only saw the efforts for Annamie. Annamie was livid when I made it clear in my Good Sunday Morning. I wrote, I am not endorsing Annamie Paul. People need to understand I'm fundraising for equity seeking groups. So I was widely attacked as having interfered. There's no question I thought Annamie Paul would be a good leader. I absolutely thought so, but I also thought Glenn Murray would be great. I also thought Courtney Howard would be great. I also thought Amita Kuttner would be great. All I can say is I did what they asked me to do, but I should have said no.
Appreciate the candor there. Yeah, I saw those letters that were blanket set out to every equity seeking candidate. I spoke with Amita about it actually at one point. Yeah, that wasn't fun for anybody. But I for anybody who's listening and isn't aware, exactly what Elizabeth was complaining about, the high cost of entry, that's been amended for this current leadership race. What's the cost now? Is it $1,000 to get in or something?
The same as it was in 2006, $1,000. Although this Leadership Contest Committee made the challenge of getting accepted as a candidate extremely difficult, particularly because you had to especially you couldn't say anything or have people know you were running. So collecting a lot of names was difficult when you couldn't say anything to anyone. Anyway, I'm not complaining. I've stuck by the rules, obviously, because I know that I'm a target. And if I bent a rule, I'd have a massive complaint. So I've been very, very careful. And and I think that the difficulty I have now is that I really want to see the party fundraise. We really need money for the party to be secure and financially stable. And half of all donations to any leadership candidate stay with the central party. But there's no question that that has presented challenges, particularly as various, well, I won't go into it, but reputational issues continue to plague us. And as I said, I think the best story and the best antidote to all of this is going to be the wonderful story of the Green comeback. And look at how they're rising in the polls on the comeback Greens. Wow. Because media loves tearing it down, and then they like building it up, and then they like tearing it down.
The drama. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't want to cover climate crisis.
Yeah,
but
no, that's too boring and slow and scary.
Oh my God. Yes. Oh man.
Okay, let's continue getting through these. No, it's okay. Let's continue getting through these questions that we've got. Next, I'm not sure who this one's from. I just recognized a couple of other names from the chat. So Pierre, our good old friend Pierre Poilievre, brought over 300,000 new people into the Conservative Party. How would you each counteract this huge migration to a party that is not going to deal with the climate crisis? So I suppose that was asked before Jonathan left.
Yeah. Well, we both want to I mean, we would really like to have events that let us be with Greens across the country and build up that excitement again. Personally, since Pierre Poilievre came into Sydney and held a rally at the Mary Winspear Centre, I was a personal objective getting into his riding and holding a larger rally. I think we need to be really exciting for people to want to join. I think we need to be a story that is coherent and clear and offers a real alternative. Why are people turning to Pierre Poilievre? He provides simplistic solutions that sound like they're going to make life better for people who are feeling, for a lot of reasons, anxious, alienated, concerned, and we can't run the risk of those people feeling as though people like us who also care about me, that they basically dismiss us now as the woke. Okay, let's make sure the left, the progressive, the woke don't leave out the people who feel excluded, alienated, and rejected by us. We have to show them a place where they belong and how their role in society matters. Otherwise, we run a really big risk to our democracy of increased fragmentation in our society. I don't have the solutions. I don't know how to do it. I just know we can't worsen the situation by being contemptuous of others.
Speaking my language, we cannot afford to alienate folks at all. It's a trope of the left eating itself, Okay, next question we got. This is from my aunt. Again, she's chiming in a lot. She actually brought this up while we were talking about using housing as an investment being moral. She said, how about completely banning foreign ownership of residential real estate? Will the Green Party support that move?
That, again, isn't a question for me as a leadership contestant. It's a question for our members because policy is developed by the membership. Would I support that? Yes, but I can't say that's our policy based on what I think or want. I'll tell you a quick short story. Like, the leader doesn't get to even determine the slogan of the party. I loved reading that Dimitri Lascaris attacking me in the Toronto Star saying, not left, not right, forward together. That's just typical Elizabeth. When they came to me with that slogan, I said, oh, I hate that. I don't want to go into the 2019 election with that slogan. They said, well, we've done focus group testing and blah, blah. Anyway, I said, it's okay, you can use it, but as long as I never have to say it. So now, like, I wear these things that as leader, as I said, leader schmeater, you're there to do the job. You're the chief spokesperson, but you're not making up the policy and you're not making up the slogans. So in this case, I totally agree personally that we should limit foreign ownership or by the way, local ownership, if it's going to things like Airbnbs, which compete with real B&Bs and real people who buy hotels and have a regulated industry and pay their staff and have insurance and all those issues. Airbnbs are gobbling up a big chunk of our housing market, and that should be illegal.
I 100% agree on that too. Yeah. Dawn, if you're still watching, if you are very passionate about that, you can speak to me later and I can help you get involved in the policy proposal format or pipeline. I helped, Elizabeth is completely telling the truth here about our policy is decided by us as card-carrying members. Elizabeth gets to vote on it as a member.
Yeah.
Just like the rest of you do. Cool. So that was the last question that we had from the audience. Oh, she's got some feedback.
Right.
She appreciates what you said about the Airbnbs.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean it's after 8 now. If you wanted to take 5 minutes to have closing words, totally up to you.
Let me just Okay, first, just let me thank you all very, very much. I'm not sure how many people are watching, and I know that it's live streaming, and I'm just grateful to have the chance to ask for your support for Jonathan and me. This is a harder race for leadership than I thought it would be, and for reasons I never expected. But Jonathan and I are committed to this party. We're committed to getting things working well. I'm committed to seeing the other leadership candidates get elected too. I mean, that was one of the tragedies of the 2020 leadership race. I thought this is going to be brilliant because Glenn Murray will get elected in Winnipeg and Courtney Howard will get elected in Northwest Territories and on and on. And Amato and Judy Green, gosh, Judy Green was rejected as a candidate in Nova Scotia, and she was a leadership candidate, and she was the only one who wanted to put her name forward to run. So we need building teams. We need to be together as Greens, supporting each other, not tearing each other down. So I really want to see Anna Keenan and Chad Walcott and Simon and Sarah elected. I want to have Jonathan and me elected co-leaders. And then, but we work to build. We've got to rebuild this party. We've got to reclaim the space that we had, and we still have it in Parliament. We're still respected in Parliament. People look to Mike Morris and me, and they sometimes say to us, "You guys are the conscience in this place." So we have work to do. I mean, just mention this. What could you do if you want to help Jonathan and me? We don't have access to your email addresses. The party has given us your mailing addresses, but not your emails. If you want to be in touch with us, please go to jonathanpedneault.ca or elizabethmay.ca and give us your email addresses. Please share. Jonathan is, as I mentioned, a documentary filmmaker. He's done some wonderful short and longer videos. There's a fantastic 1-minute video that mirrors the two of us. He did this, I don't know how he did. He found archival footage of me as a young activist and archival footage of him, which he knew where that was as a young activist. It's like, considering how different we are, we have a parallelism of having decided in our teens that this was our life's work and we're going to go out and do it no matter what. And he's, yeah, so sharing those, I want to say those, a 1-minute video that's about the two of us, and it talks about how we have to weather the storm, but it's about the two of us in a really subtle way. Share the videos that you can find on our websites. Please send us your email addresses. Please spread the word to others that you had this conversation, and you can see that Jonathan and I are equal partners, that we are approaching this with real humility, that we need to make sure that this party plays the role in Canada that it must. And the federal party must no longer be an embarrassment for the BC Greens or the Ontario Greens or the PEI Greens. We must build a movement across the country where we are not dragging other aspects of the party down, just as we support our friends in the Green Party of New Zealand or the Green Party of Germany, where they're now in cabinet, as they are in New Zealand, with co-leaders. The co-leadership model is deeply embedded in the Green parties of many Greens around the world. Not every Green Party, but certainly New Zealand, Sweden, Germany. It's not England and Wales, Scotland. By the way, the two co-leaders of the Scottish Green Party are in their cabinet, And one of them, Lorna Slater, is actually from Calgary and doesn't even have a Scottish accent. And her family from Calgary still thinks she's nuts, but she's a member of the cabinet of the government of Scotland as co-leader. It works. But we as Greens, we are family. And I'm co-chair of the Global Greens Parliamentarians Association. There's 400 roughly Green MPs around the world. Lots of Greens have ups and downs. Believe me, the democratic model, the grassroots governance of this party as part of our deep culture does create some messiness now and then. But stick with us. We need you. We need to rebuild and restore in 2019 and means in the next election to be a recognized. Thanks for this opportunity, and I'll say goodnight with all that. And Derek, thank you. And also hats off to you for extraordinary bravery at Fairy Creek. I don't know where I went there. Something went wrong there. I'm back. I don't know what. Oh, man.
Oh, I was muted. Thanks for telling me that, Neil. I'm
I was
playing
wondering
around with
what-
a hard mute button here on this microphone I got, so I keep accidentally. Anyway, thanks so much. Thanks so much for coming on. It's really nice to have you.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody follow them on. Oh, don't follow them on Twitter. Don't go on Twitter. Go to their website though. Give them your email and show people the video on your
Please.
phones. And you can donate
Yeah.
there, and if you want to help out with volunteering, I'm sure there's opportunities as well. That's
There's lots.
elizabethmay.ca
Yeah,
and jonathanpedneault.ca.
and it's Pedneault. But you can find it easily on the Green Party website as well. Jonathan Pedneault, Elizabeth May. I think we're a pretty awesome team. And he's, I'm straight, he's gay, I'm old, he's young, and I love his chocolate covered blueberry description of who he is. Can you imagine growing up in rural northern Quebec as the only Black kid in the community and end up being like, I mean, he's got an amazing life story. I'm sorry that you didn't get enough time to talk to him and too much talking to me, but thank you for this. And we'll see you in real life sometime and not just on Zoom.
Okay, I'm gonna end the live stream here. We could have a little brief chat afterward if you want to stick on for a minute here. Thanks everybody so much for coming on and joining us again. This for our third leadership race interview. Next Tuesday, I'm not sure what the date is. Same time, 6:30 p.m. We're going to be doing our last interview. It's going to be with Simon Nocini Messier. I'm not sure. Messier Nocini. I have no idea how to pronounce his name. Sorry to everybody who speaks French.
He'll be
Simon,
a great member of parliament.
Yeah, he's going to be on. And keep your eye on your email. Okay, thanks everybody.